In the midst of a pandemic, they have come together and they said that they wanted to be the change that they wanted to see. They canvassed and registered people to vote, and that deserves a celebration. They have supported local and national elections. They have spoken out at our school board meetings to raise awareness for mental health, and they have donated to the less fortunate. That deserves a celebration. And they did this all while they were adapting to this new norm. They were on computers all day long, away from their friends in the daytime on virtual school, but they still were committed to our community, and I'm so excited for them. They even had to overcome their own fear of public speaking, and they daily affirm their commitment to our beloved capital city. So to our youth, I want to let you know that today is your day. I want you to know today is a day to be seen and be heard. So be bold, be confident, and let the city of Montgomery know who you are. I want to thank everybody for being here. You are in for a treat. I want to thank our parents. I want to thank our teachers. I want to thank the coaches. I want to thank all of y'all for being here today. And without any further ado, I'm going to go ahead and give it to our beautiful host, Ms. Michelle Summers. Give her a hand.
Good afternoon. I do count it as a privilege to be here today. A great poet by the name of Black Ice asked, what happens in the neighborhoods where the self-esteem has been overshadowed by the decay and the children no longer play the way they used to? Today, Destiny Driven, the CEO and founder, Crystal Russell, has strongly answered that question. And we answer it by investing in our young people. We answer it by sowing seeds that we may not necessarily see the harvest for right now, but assuring that when you sow into a child, you will reap the benefits, and it will be an eternal benefit, because the blessing, as we know on a Sunday as Christians, the blessing is in passing it on. And for every seed that has been sown today, we will see a great harvest as the years go by. I have been afforded with the great opportunity of working with these young people, and let me tell you something. If we continue this investment, our positive future is assured. Not only have they mastered academics, presentation, but they have also mastered team building and unity and coming together and supporting each other. And so my answer to the question is Destiny Driven, and I hope that you all enjoyed today. And like most of us, we will also learn from them, because every great revolution has always started with our young people. When we look at Dr. King, it was the young people. When we study Mahatma Gandhi, it was the young people. When they begin to lift their voices and let us know what they need, we are then afforded with the opportunity of buying into their thoughts and dreams and imparting wisdom to them. And so without further ado, I am so excited. So I would love to say to Elizabeth, to Haley, to Alon, to Michaela, and to Maya, I am honored to be here with you today. And we are so excited. You want to laugh? I said it right. This is the king of the group. This is Alon, and let's put our hands together. Because our young men, especially African American men, face so many trials, and people are always saying, you're always uplifting the men. Well, I'm a believer, when the men straighten up the women, we will fall in line. Yeah. We have to allow them to be the kings of our community, the kings of our households, the kings in our school. I am very proud of him, and I have not been very easy on him. He is a student at Morehouse. Hello. And he has a full ride. Hello. He's on scholarship. Hello. Because we tear stadium up when they hit touchdowns. But we have to also tear the stadium up when they're doing things. And I've also required of him to put and sow seeds into these young people, because that Morehouse degree is worth nothing if he keeps it to himself. Amen. I'm very proud of him today, and I'm proud of all of them. So without further ado, are y'all ready? Yeah. Are we ready to learn? Are we going to get with them? That is very good. So, without further ado, Coach Colvin, I am going to turn it over to you. And I wish that you all could see Coach Colvin. He is a very humble man, but he is also a very determined man. He has given of himself. He has laid it on the table, and we are so proud to have you in the midst. I want to honor Shayla Jackson. Shayla will be taking my place, and I'm excited for my own child to be able to get a little bit of Shayla Jackson, if you understand. So, without further ado, I turn it over to you, Coach
All right,
Cole.
thank you, Dr. Summers. Oh, I love that.
Yes.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, today we are debating resolved civil disobedience is morally justified. We are now in line for the affirmative.
What is the purpose of a law if it is not just? One has not only a legal, but a moral responsibility to obey just laws. Conversely, one has a moral responsibility to disobey unjust laws. Because I agree with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s letter from the Birmingham jail, I submit that an individual that breaches an unjust law which degrades human personality and non-grudgingly, non-violently accepts the consequences of imprisonment to create tension within his or her community has not only the highest respect for the law, but is also morally justifiable. Standing in his shadow in the birthplace of the civil rights movement, I affirm the resolution, civil disobedience is morally justifiable.
All right. Great job.
In order to clarify the resolution, the affirmative would like to elucidate a few key terms. According to philosopher John Rawls, civil disobedience, a public, non-violent, and consensuous breach of law undertaken with the aim of bringing about a change in laws or government policies. People who engage in civil disobedience are willing to accept the legal ramifications of their actions, as this shows their fidelity to the rule of law. From the Cambridge Dictionary, morally, based on principles that you or people in general to be right, honest, or acceptable. And finally, justified, from the Oxford Languages Dictionary, the action of showing something to be right or reasonable. My value for today's debate is morality, which addresses the resolution more accurately. The resolution questions moral justification, and any other value would fail to prove the resolution to be a true or false statement. The criterion I offer for weighing the resolution is human rights. This is because under human rights treaties, governments have the primary responsibility for protecting and promoting human rights. This provision means not only the government, but also businesses, civil society, and individuals are responsible for promoting and respecting human rights. To substantiate my value and criterion, I offer that civil disobedience is morally justifiable. Contention 1. Democracies aren't perfect and often make mistakes. The U.S. has denied various groups their rights. Examples include slavery, Jim Crow laws, denial of women's suffrage, bans on gay marriages. According to Courses.Women.Learning, at the end of the 19th century, southern states of the United States had passed laws of racial segregation, which they are directed against us African American population. As the Democratic politicians return as the leading power in the southern governments, it eventually leads to the creation of racial segregation laws throughout the United States. These series of laws are also known as Jim Crow laws. It started when the former Confederate states began to place a sequence of taxes, literacy tests, comprehension tests, and complicated requirements into the voting process. These new amendments had eventually prevented most African Americans to vote by other means. The Southern government disfranchised African Americans from the United States politics simply by restricting their suffrage and excluding their power in the state government, which makes the African American population more vulnerable to unjustified laws and regulations. These laws prohibit intermarriage, restricts education, and eliminates the unity of races in the United States. In addition, the American Civil Rights Movement restored equality in the American society. This is a great example of how civil disobedience repairs corrupted governments and restores happiness to the greatest number of people possible. Also, colonists fought taxation without representation put in place by the government and the Boston Tea Party. If it weren't for the act of defiance, the Revolutionary War would have not happened. Nelson Mandela encouraged the citizens of South Africa to participate in the Purple Rain protest and Cape Town Peace March to denounce apartheid. A few months later, South Africa entered a new political era where de Klerk unbanned the African National Congress and other anti-apartheid organizations and freed Nelson Mandela and other prisoners. Civil disobedience provides a mechanism for citizens to make a change in laws that do not protect citizens. Thank you.
Contention 2. Citizens have a moral responsibility to disobey unjust laws which degrade human dignity, as injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Whatever affects one indirectly affects all directly. The social contract requires us to speak up and take nonviolent direct action. Now some may ask, what is the social contract? Thomas Hobbes defines the social contract as an act in which individuals agree to form a government. Now our social contract is the United States Constitution. In that contract you have rights that give you free expression. From that glorious document we have something called the Bill of Rights. It gives you freedom of speech, the right to assembly, the right to protest, the right to bear arms, and many, many more. Today, the premises of today's debate lies on that right to assembly and protest. As Dr. King stated, throughout history, the oppressor has rarely given up their privileges to the oppressed. It must be demanded by the oppressed. Take, for example, the civil rights movement, the women's suffrage movement, or the fight for equality for all, or even, as Haley said, the Boston Tea Party. Nevertheless, without nonviolent direct action and pressure on the state, we would never make a pivotal gain in any movement. Now, some may ask, why not try other means and efforts? Why not petition the government? Why not talk to your legislators? Why not wait for a better time? Why not negotiate? It's because when we've reached the point of nonviolent direct action, we have no other choice than to bring out that unjust law to the open so it no longer can be denied. Dr. King once stated, justice delayed is justice denied. So we chose nonviolent direct action, which is given to us by the social contract, to create tensions within our community as constructive nonviolent criticism is necessary for growth.
Yes, ma'am.
We declare our right on this earth to be a human being, to be respected as a human being, to be given the rights of a human being in this society, on this earth, on this day, which we intend to bring into existence by any means necessary. These powerful words were spoken by the great El-Hajj Malik El-Shabazz decades ago, and yet they still hold the same significance as they did then. The philosophy of moral autonomy provides a pathway of true self-governing, self-determining, and acting independently without the influence or distortion of others. Any great citizens of this world operated in the pure definition of this theoretical concept. Moral autonomy relates to the individual ideas of whether right or wrong conduct is independent of ethical issues. This concept helps with the improvement of self-determination. Cesar Chavez, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Mahatma Gandhi, El-Hajj Malik El-Shabazz, Daisy Bates, and the Little Rock Nine, and the Black Panther Party embodied this concept and reflected it through their actions, words, and thoughts. From Cesar Chavez's fight for workers' rights, Gandhi's nonviolent resistance to British rule, El-Hajj's defiant speeches bashing cultural structures that serve racism and capitalism, Daisy Bates and the Little Rock Nine's resistance to a segregated educational system, the Black Party's revolutionary actions of community engagement and protection, and simply put the ideology of our king that transformed the world and are still the frameworks that give us a snapshot into what civil disobedience can yield using the notion of moral autonomy. These activists all have one thing in common: power to the people. In today's society, we lean on independence. We have become dependent on politicians to determine our rights, teachers for education and theory, social media for ideas and concepts, and even grocery stores for food. While civil disobedience has been an effective method of protest for African Americans and indigenous people and people of color worldwide, we often find moral autonomy as a desire for the poor and marginalized. The techniques used by oppressive social structures have emboldened society's most fragile citizens, and yet the fights have become repetitive, and moral autonomy is still widely debated and dismissed. However, when we fully embrace this concept, we draw closer to civil disobedience, because we will then rebel against the corrupt government systems, police states that use their authority dishonorably, and antiquated educational systems that destroy the academic self-esteem of children, and economic systems that cripple the desire for economic freedom. Moral autonomy gives our global community an opportunity to express their ideas and thoughts without the threat of violence, harm, and retaliation. So in order for these to take hold on the minds of people, much like the aforementioned freedom fighters, we must galvanize, strategize, and mobilize against unjust laws, unfair treatment, and the blatant negligence of any citizen on the globe. We must take the lessons and reimagine them for this generation. Will intimidation come? Yes. Will fear rise up? Yes. Will people turn a blind eye to the truth? Yes.
All right.
But remember in the immortal words of the greatest freedom fighter, the drum major for justice, who came to free the minds of people and have a love resolution. He simply said that on some positions, cowardice asks the question, is it safe? Expedience asks the question, is it politic? And vanity comes along and asks the question, is it popular? Conscience asks the question, is it right? And then there comes a time when one must take the position that is neither safe nor politic nor popular, but he must do it because conscience tells him it is right. If I believe that there is a need for the people of good will come together and with a massive act of conscience and saying the words of the old Negro spiritual, we ain't gonna study war no more. This is the challenge facing modern man.
All right.
All right, thank you to the affirmative side. We now have an opportunity for the negative side to ask questions. This will be a 4-minute question period.
Do you think that breaking the law is okay?
I think breaking an unjust law is okay.
Do you think that anyone can interpret law as degrading human character?
I would say there has been many instances where we have saw different laws that degrade human character.
So going back to my question, do you think anyone can interpret that? Any law as degrading human character and their own interpretation?
That all yes.
Could you restate what you said about unjust laws degrading human dignity?
Yes, so an unjust law degrades who you are. It degrades your character. It degrades your personality.
Okay. So you talked about the civil rights movement. Do you feel that those who did not agree with the legislation that was trying to be passed were morally right?
Could you restate the question?
Yes. So you talked about the civil rights movement. Do you feel that those who did not agree with the legislation that was trying to be passed were morally right?
Most of those laws that were passed back then were not morally correct.
Morally?
Morally wrong. They were morally unjust.
Okay. Can you restate your definition of moral also?
You got the definition.
From the Cambridge Dictionary, morally, based on principles that you or people in general to be right, honest, or acceptable.
Thank you so much. And one more question. Do you have any examples of where civil disobedience alone caused change?
Yes, you can look at the Montgomery Boys boycott.
You mentioned the Montgomery Boys boycott, but don't you agree that it took don't you agree that Dr. King and other leaders of the civil rights movement had to work with lawmakers to get those laws changed?
Yes, they did, but civil disobedience opened the door to negotiation.
So it spread awareness, but it didn't make laws.
To me, it made law. It made the change. It made the change.
Okay, thank you.
Congress makes laws, yes or no?
Yes, Congress makes laws about laws.
Okay, do you also agree that we vote for Congress?
Yes, we vote.
Okay.
I just voted.
Congratulations. Elizabeth, can you give the definition of moral autonomy? And also, where did you get it?
The philosophy of moral autonomy provides a pathway to true self-governing, self-determining, and acting independently without the influence or distortion of others. Many great citizens of the world operate in the pure definition of this throughout concept. Moral autonomy relates to the individual ideas of whether right or wrong conduct is independent of ethical issues.
Okay.
I got this from Britain.
Okay.
Do you feel that in a democracy or any form of government, people are entitled to their own opinion?
Yes, people are entitled to their own.
And do you agree that everyone has their own interpretation of the law?
What do you mean by that?
So I mean, sort of, so when I say do people have their own interpretation of the law and what it means to them, I mean sort of a certain, for example, you mentioned the civil rights movement. Do you think that some of those laws could have been interpreted differently by other people?
By the oppressor, it was interpreted differently.
How do you feel, well, what is your, okay.
Do you believe that Martin Luther King spoke with law officials to help the civil rights movement move forward?
I know he did, yes.
Okay.
And you, once again, don't have any, okay, never mind.
Okay, that's time.
That's time?
That's time. All right, the negative side has the case coming up, but would you like to use some prep time before you begin the speech?
We're good.
Okay.
Judge, are you ready?
Yes.
I think you're ready.
Of course.
Okay, good. There is a right to protest in our country, but at times in which the protest is done the manner in which the protest is done breaks all permissible levels. Because I agree with Balakandra Manan that every citizen should have the right to protest unjust laws, and that legitimate protests must fall within the parameters of society's legal parameters, we must stand negatively resolved that civil disobedience is not morally justified. First, let us define the term civil disobedience as the refusal to obey the demands or commands of a government or occupying power without resulting to violence or active measure of opposition. Second, let us continue with the definition of moral. Cambridge English Dictionary defines moral as of or relating to the standards of good or bad behavior that each person believes in. Contention 1. Societies already have mechanisms put in place to remedy unjust laws. In the United States, a country with a democracy, citizens have the right to petition the government. This freedom includes the right to gather signatures in support of a cause and to lobby legislative bodies for or against legislation. The European Commission also has a place where you can report if you feel that your rights have been breached, and also provide pathways such as the right to petition the European Parliament. In countries such as Finland, as a citizen, you have the right to participate in the European Citizens Commission, where you can even propose legislation, in addition to the right to referendums and freedom of expression. It is morally wrong to willingly disobey laws simply because you feel they are wrong. You can't decide which laws to obey or which to ignore. If that was the case, the world would be in complete, total, utter chaos. There are other ways to be heard. A society has mechanisms for creating change that do not require civil disobedience, which includes breaking the law. No, democracies are not perfect, and governments are ruled by the consent of the governed. You can make a petition, vote, contact your legislatures, some of which we have even standing right here in our lovely audience. Because governments have mechanisms and opportunities to correct unjust laws, the ways in which those laws can be changed legally maintains order in societies, thus ensuring the safety and protecting all of its
citizens. Civil disobedience requires one to violate the law, and that is why it is not morally justified. Contention 2. Civil disobedience does not always create the lasting change those of whom desire the change want. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who was a civil rights activist who fought for peace and racial equality during the 20th century. The people who worked with Dr. King had a strategy. The NAACP joined the Council of Federated Organizations to launch Mississippi Freedom Summer, a massive project that assembled hundreds of voters to participate in voter registration and education. In 1954, Thurgood Marshall and a team of NAACP lawyers won Brown v. Board of Education of Topeka, Kansas. In this landmark decision, the Supreme Court held that segregation in public education violated the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. Yet, near almost 100 years later, the same problems of racial inequality and racism still exist. Yes, there were numerous victories in the fights and instances that he fought for. However, the root of the problem is still the same. I'm tired, and I know that you all are too. We had Black Lives Matter movements and protests last summer over the death of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, which still sheds light on the trend of racial inequality of America. Civil disobedience does not always create change. Furthermore, civil disobedience disregards those who are elected. In places with a democracy, such as the United States, you are able to petition the government, protest, speech, and assembly. However, the line is crossed when you endanger and disregard the laws that are already established. One could elect individuals whom they feel align with their best interests, and elect those who they feel will make a righteous law for their constituents. For example, in 1965, it took John F. Kennedy and the Civil Rights Act of 1965, of the Voting Rights Act of 1965, and John F. Kennedy of the Civil Rights Act of 1965 to make those laws that people felt agreed and that people in a democracy felt aligned with their views. Let us be reminded that notable lawmakers and people in positions of power aided to make, pursue, and enforce those laws. By acknowledging and following procedures of that of the law, electing people who feel they align with their best interests, and after several meetings and occurrences with lawmakers were not only able to do their jobs, but cater to the interests of those in communities and spaces in which they live in. Thank you so much.
Judge, are you ready?
Yes, ma'am.
Governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. The Declaration of Independence. By saying that one is mandated to follow the law to avoid consequences. The Supreme Court of the United States has held that the First Amendment protects the right to conduct a peaceful public assembly. Demonstrators who engage in civil disobedience, defined as nonviolent unlawful action as a form of protest, are not protected under the First Amendment. People who engage in civil disobedience should be prepared to be arrested or fined as part of their protest activity. By infringing upon the rule of law, by willingly and openly disobeying, practicing civil disobedience continues to pose a complete threat to the rule of law. Laws in which we use every day to maintain order, protect general safety, and secure overall welfare of each and every person. Civil disobedience is carried out by people who feel that laws are already established are unjust, and feel that being by civilly disobedient, they will achieve what they feel is right. In vast types of governments, such as democracy, people are ruled by the majority. By disobeying the law, whether nonviolent or not, civil disobedience set the precedent that anyone can break the law at any time. Cornell Law School states that the legal system is a procedure or process for interpreting or enforcing the law. By allowing civil disobedience to subsist, the law is upheld. Civil disobedience can sometimes lead to increased violence. Sometimes civil disobedience simply creates a tougher resistance to the issue at hand. The riots in Baltimore over Freddie Gray's death are an excellent example of this disadvantage. It started off as a peaceful protest, but as the situation escalated, as local authorities refused to release details in their investigation into Gray's death, riots broke out April 27th, after Gray's funeral, drawing nationwide attention. Police cars and stores were set on fire. The fire hose was cut while the firefighters were trying to put out the fire. And pharmacies were looted with nearly 3,500 doses of drugs. 2 years later, after Freddie Gray's death, none of the 6 officers were arrested or held accountable. 2 years later, none of the officers were held accountable or arrested. Some of them even got promotions. One of the officers now patrols the Baltimore waterfront. Another works with the unit that polices the city in helicopters. A third officer, now a detective, investigates powerful drug rings. All of a sudden, these warranted Black Lives Matter protests became riots. At one point, when is it going to stop? We retaliate over and over again and lose loved ones. If civil disobedience is working, why are we still fighting for the same things? Right here in Montgomery, Alabama, we have our own lynching museum of hundreds and thousands of people who fought for what they believed in, but now their families have to live without them, grow without them, and live and grieve over them. It causes heartache and pain. But what we need is effective change. Michelle Obama once said, like so many of you, I am pained by these recent tragedies. And I'm exhausted by a heartbreak that never seems to stop. Right now, it's George, Brianna, and Ahmaud. Before that, it was Eric, Sandra, and Michael. It goes on and on and on. Race and racism is a reality that so many of us grow up learning to just deal with. But if we ever hope to move past it, it can't just be on people of color. It's up to all of us. Black, white, everyone.
That's right.
No matter how well-meaning we think we might be, to do the honest, uncomfortable work of rooting it out, it starts with self-examination.
Absolutely.
And listening to those whose lives are different from our own. It ends with justice, compassion, and empathy that manifest in our lives and on our streets. I want you to take a minute and think about that. Thank you.
All right, we are now in line for some questions from the affirmative side. You have 4 minutes.
You would agree that citizens have a right to protest unjust laws, correct?
Yes.
And you would agree that the killing of an innocent person is wrong, correct?
Yes.
You would also,
Morally.
excuse me?
Yes.
Okay. You'd also agree that peaceful protests are lawful.
Yes.
And you would agree that civil disobedience is a non-violent act.
Yes.
And you could agree with me when I say that Dr. King, one of his most important steps was civil disobedience, correct?
Yes.
Would you agree that would you agree that it takes a long time to pass a law? May you repeat when you said that all laws protect citizens?
In my first contention?
I believe so.
Okay. I said because governments have mechanisms and opportunities to correct unjust laws, the ways in which those laws can be changed legally maintains order in society, thus ensuring the safety and protection of all of its citizens.
So would you say that Jim Crow laws protected citizens and where the
Come on,
safety
baby.
was the top priority of citizens when those laws were passed?
Where it's safe. Can you,
Would you say that Jim Crow laws protected citizens?
would I say that those laws
Would you agree?
morally? I feel that everyone has their own interpretation of moral. And I feel that because of my own personal definition of moral, those Jim Crow laws were the law. Okay, thank you.
Okay, this is a question for you. Do you believe it is morally right to obey an unjust law? Do you? Okay. Do you believe one's morals are wrong? For example, protesters, people of color.
I feel that everyone has their own interpretation of moral, and you, in a democracy especially, you have a right to protest and make your voice heard in, for certain issues that you want to change.
Can you give examples of other examples of people's morals? Or can you repeat what you just said?
I said that because everyone has their own interpretation. What was the question?
Do you believe one's morals are wrong?
Yeah, so I just asked to clarify.
Okay.
I feel that everyone has their own different interpretation of moral. Definitely, and because we are all different, because we are so unique and diverse, I can't necessarily have the same definition of what I interpret as moral as someone else.
My next question for you. Who starts the violence at these peaceful protests?
The one that I used as an example it was the people who started the protest.
Bloody Sunday.
The oppressors, yes, they started.
The march to Washington. No, the march to Selma to Montgomery.
The oppressors.
Okay.
Could you clarify what you mean to me about the rule of law?
In which condition?
I believe it was in one of my contingents. I think both of you guys stated a lot. The rule of law?
The rule of law. Do you have any? I said that it maintains societies, ensuring the safety and protection of all of its citizens. Is that what you're talking about?
Yep.
Do you have one more question? You got time for one more? Sure.
Okay. Would you say that citizens don't know if a law is unjust?
I wouldn't say that they don't know. I say they can feel about it.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Affirmative. Our next speech is a negative response to the affirmative case. Would you like to use some prep time before beginning that?
Yes.
Okay. Both sides will have an opportunity to respond to each other. These will both be 5-minute speeches. So we're going to give them some prep time. One minute used, 3 minutes remaining.
While they are prepping, I wanted to give some special shout outs to the audience. I am truly humbled right now. I'm overjoyed and almost guaranteed to support, even though I did support. But I think we should definitely give honor where honor is due, because people who are elected officials do not have a lot of time, because they are generally doing things in the community. So I want to give a special acknowledgement to, as I affectionately call him, the Honorable Stephen Reed. Thank you so much, and I know that means the world to these young people. You know, I remember being that age. I don't remember a mayor besides Harold Washington who showed up for anything like this.
Amen.
For our young people. So we are gracious and we're appreciative. Also, we have City Councilman Aronde K. Mitchell, District 6. And we know that Councilman Mitchell is always on the move. So the fact that he found time in his busy schedule to come and support, and I think that will lift these children. We also have Chief Advisor to the Mayor, Mr. Philip Insler. He was also my co-worker, former educator, took children to D.C., so he has not forgotten his roots. I would like to also thank the principal and father of one of the participants, Mr. Mullins of J.D. High School. And we see where she gets a lot of that from, but we won't discount her mother, my dear friend. I've already thanked Brenda DeRamus Coleman. I honor you today, sister, so much for what you're doing, being civilly disobedient on the board, a woman after my own heart. And then my girl over there, Audra Graham. I like her. Now she will turn up. She is a woman after my own heart. And so I think that this topic and everything that's happening is great. Oh, using your hair done. I'm sorry, I never see Errol. And another disobedient board member, Watkins. I'm so sorry to. I'm gonna come back up though. And I done got nervous. Let me get my stuff together. That's Sheriff Cunningham. Thank you all. Thank you all. So I'm going to give it back over to Coach Colvin so that they can resume the debate.
All right, we're ready for the negative rebuttal.
Judge, are you ready? Our opposing side asked, what is the purpose of a law if it is unjust? To rebut that, a law, everyone has their own interpretation of the law, and they decide what is unjust. As the negative side would like to reiterate, we all have our own different interpretations of what moral and unjust mean. Who can determine unjust? Who can determine unjust and make a rule of law stating that for each and every person, as if we disregard each and every person's differences. We are all different. We are all unique. Our opposing team, the negative side, also stated that by being civically disobedient, one has a high respect for the law. This is a contradiction. How can you have high respect for the law and break it? In our opponent's first contention, they stated democracies aren't perfect, and they've denied various groups of rights. However, we do realize that democracies aren't perfect. We have some of our lawmakers sitting right here in our audience. In a democracy, the country and type of government that each and every one of us live in, our day-to-day lives live in, have mechanisms to create and make your opinions heard. We do reiterate the social contract theory that governments are ruled by the consent of the governed. That is why there are mechanisms and ways to make your voice heard. You can petition the government. You can vote. You can talk to your legislatures. Second, in our opponent's second contention, they stated that that everyone, in cross-examination, our opponent talked about how asked us questions pertaining to Bloody Sunday and asked us who starts the violence. However, although in various different cases, there have been instances where the oppressor has started there have been instances where the oppressor has oppressed the oppressed, and where the oppressed has oppressed the oppressor. And in that case, and to reiterate that sentence, I would like to say that there have been tensions, there have been conflicts, and that is because we are all different.
because we are all different, we all interpret things differently. Our opponents talked about the civil rights movement and the causes in which they fought for. However, let's acknowledge the other side of the argument. We all don't necessarily have to agree, but those who did not want those laws passed had a right to voice their opinions and make their voices heard, which is the privilege that we so greatly do not take for granted that we have in a democracy, the country in which we live. Even in other countries such as Finland, you have a right to petition the government and make referendums.
You hear me?
See, our opponents also talked about moral autonomy and talked about giving rights. However, as our opponents, to yield to our argument, which perfectly does, our opponents talked about the Bill of Rights. However, you do have rights. You have a right to a freedom of speech, assembly, which what we are all doing right now, to come see this lovely, amazing debate. She also talked about how it gives a global chance to express ideas without retaliation. However, we recognize that democracies are not perfect, and once again, to reiterate, societies have mechanisms without retaliation. You can vote. You can make a petition. You can talk to your legislatures. For these reasons, we stand negatively resolved that civil disobedience is not morally justifiable.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. We're now in line for the affirmative response. Would you guys like to use some of your prep time?
Yes, we'll use we'll use a minute of our prep time.
Okay.
Judge, we're gonna scratch that. We're gonna go straight into it.
Okay. I'm ready whenever you are.
As I remind you all today that the debate topic is civil disobedience morally justifiable? Anywhere, but not just in a democracy. The negating side is saying we don't know which laws are moral. So you mean to tell me we don't know what's right or wrong? The 16th Street Baptist Church bombing of those 4 innocent little black girls that were killed, but we don't know if that's right or wrong.
Come on, yes, sir.
African Americans not having the right to vote because of the color of their skin or even receiving the proper education that they needed, but we don't know if that's right or wrong. The Central Park 5 men who are our age, but we don't know if that's right or wrong. The negating side is we don't know if that's moral, whether it's a law. I guarantee you that each action that I just named, you knew that it was immoral, Just as I've proven, we know what is morally justifiable. The negating side is arguing that you should just wait and sign a petition that a law degrades human dignity, and just wait. So Martin Luther King should have waited. Rosa Parks should have waited. Or Nelson Mandela should have waited. You should just wait and get a petition and change the law. But we all know how long that takes. Claudette Colvin should have waited and got signatures only from black people because no white person is going to sign that paper. And get a white legislator to sign off on it. The same legislators who beat on us black people. The same legislators who killed us because of our race. And the same white legislators who aren't convicted because you have a jury full of white people. Let me remind you, you could not serve on a jury unless you were registered to vote, and unfortunately black people weren't registered to vote at the time. But we should wait on these same legislators, right? Legislators like George Wallace, who said, I say segregation now, segregation tomorrow, and segregation forever. So how long are we supposed to wait? I guess forever. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
In their first contention, the negating side says that civil disobedience undermines the law. Now, let me be clear that civil disobedience is the nonviolent act in which the participants of civil disobedience are willing to accept the consequences, therefore, afterwards of imprisonment and fines. More so, the participants do it out in the open. They do it lovingly. They do it caringly. This in no way undermines the law. It shows their fidelity to the law.
All right.
In their second contention, the negating side says that societies have other mechanisms put in place to change the law. But on cross-examination, they admit that it takes a long time to change the law. and to get laws passed. Let me remind you that when we reach the point of nonviolent direct action, we have no other choice. We've already tried those other steps. They also say that you should contact your legislators. These are the same legislators that it took them a whole year to get you $2,000 during the midst of the pandemic. These are the same legislators that won't give you health care for all during the middle of a pandemic.
Wow.
These are the same legislators that won't address the pay gap between black women and men in the workplace.
That's right.
These are the same legislators that won't pass common sense gun reform. Now, in their third contention, they say that civil disobedience sometimes causes violence. Now, they commit a fallacy in this debate today. Now, the fallacy they commit is post hoc irregular prompter hoc. That is Latin for therefore, after this, because of this. It is an assumption that says B happened after A, therefore A must have caused B to happen. But the premises falls apart because they fail to realize that the oppressor caused the violence to happen, not the act of civil disobedience. They also say that this contention is also a straw man and a false equivalency for what the debate today is about. Now, how can you say that civil disobedience sometimes does not create change? Essentially, you say that Claudette Colvin did not create change. You say that Dr. Martin Luther King did not create change. You say that Susan B. Anthony did not create change. You say that our very own Cheyenne Christberg did not create change. You say that Joe Reed did not create change. Now, we are saying simply that when you've tried those steps of education, of information gathering, and you have no other option, you go to civil disobedience so they can no longer deny you, so you can return back to the negotiation table. Now, the negating side also says that nothing has changed because of civil disobedience. Today I want to tell you that progress has been made. Women can vote because we participated in civil disobedience. We no longer have segregated schools because of civil disobedience. You can sit anywhere on the bus because of civil disobedience. And they no longer call you 2/3 of a person because of civil disobedience. Thank you.
All right, we're now in line for the final speech from the negative. You have 2 minutes of prep time remaining. Would you like to use that?
Yes. Pull up on them, okay? Nowhere. Not nowhere. Come on, let's look up.
1 minute remaining.
In that minute, let's give them a round of applause. They taught us some stuff. We learned some Latin, some history. Let's give them a round of applause. Yeah.
30 seconds remaining. And that's time. Right?
Come on, McKay.
is the final negative speech. It's called the negative summary, so this will sum up their arguments and their position. It is you have 5 minutes on the clock, whenever you're ready.
Judge, are you ready?
Yes, ma'am.
Opposing team, are you ready? Yes. Okay. Our opponents stated that we don't know we said that we don't know what's right or wrong. Clearly, we were misheard. We said that everyone has their own interpretation of moral and what they feel is unjust. She talked about the Central Park Five and and not having proper education. And she said in her speech that we knew it was not moral. However, because we are all different and because we all have our own interpretation of what things mean to us, we know, because we all interpret it the way that we do, we know that although people have their own interpretation, people have their own interpretation. How I may see something may be completely different from how you all see something. We know that it was moral because that's what we felt. We felt that we were not equal. We felt that way, and we acknowledge the progress that those have done. But to rebut and to summarize a point that the opposing team made, saying that we said that nothing has changed, we want to acknowledge progress. I'm glad that I'm able to sit on a bus whenever I want to. I'm glad that I'm able to vote. However, we want to acknowledge that there is still work to be done. I know each and every one of you are tired of protesting. I know each and every one of you are tired of being put at a disadvantage. I know that. That's what we are trying to acknowledge as a negative side. Our opponents also talked about civil disobedience and named fallacies. However, we use factual information and factual examples of the protests that led to riots over the death of Freddie Gray. Those are real examples, and that completely contradicts what the negative side was saying about us. They also, in their argument, stated that after civil disobedience, we can turn back to the negotiation table. That is exactly our point. Because societies do have mechanisms put in place, voting, petitioning, even not even other countries just simply as the U.S., but other countries as well. We acknowledge and we say, that because you have to turn back to the negotiating table. It takes lawmakers to make and enforce those laws, to cater to the interests of their constituents. She talked lastly, our opponents talked about how we said that we should have waited, how we should have and then all other influential people and said that we should have waited. We didn't say you should have waited. Our premise is that you can make a change by following the law. It maintains orders and it protects the general safety. Those same words, protect the safety and general welfare, were uttered in the preamble to our Constitution. Last time I checked in my history book. And she also named people such as George Wallace and other segregation people about talking about how we should have waited. We acknowledge, she said in her argument that democracies are not perfect. First off, we acknowledge that democracies are not perfect. And that is why we have mechanisms, once again, to create a change. You can vote, you can make a petition, you can talk to our legislatures. And we want to personally thank each and every one of our legislatures and our people who we elect, which is a power and privilege that we have in a democracy. Thank you so much. For these reasons, you should vote negatively resolved that civil disobedience is not morally justified.
Let us remind you that the topic of this debate is civil disobedience morally justified? Not which form of protest is better. The definition of protest is a strong complaint expressing disagreement, disapproval, or opposition. To conclude, civil disobedience is not morally justified. First, societies have mechanisms or opportunities to correct those unjust laws. In a democracy, citizens have the right to petition the government. They have freedom of speech, assembly, religion, and you can even talk to your legislators. Practicing civil disobedience overlooks the law and dismisses the efforts of lawmakers. The same people put in the position whom we elect to serve our best interests and well-being. Everyone has a different definition of moral in terms of what's legal. Everyone has a different definition of moral in terms of what's legal. People have different idea of what the law could be and should not be. People interpret morality in their own way. Civil disobedience empowers people to break the laws they don't agree with.
Wow. Wow.
Who will hold the power to decide if an unjust law is an unjust law? We need to be effective and not rush. In addition, if you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk.
That's right.
If you can't walk, then crawl. But whatever you do, you have to keep moving forward. These are the words by Dr. Martin Luther King.
That's right.
This is what he and other civil rights leaders did, and numerous others who believed and advocated for change. They kept going. Yet, I am tired of racial inequality, tired of being put at a disadvantage, tired of begging, pleading, and fighting for the same issues. Not only 100, not 200, but 400 years later. I am tired of asking, when is the change going to come? I am tired, exhausted even, and I know you are too. We admire the respect of each and every advocate. Yet, although they did use civil disobedience does not always create change and can lead to violence. If it did, why are we still praying for our brothers and sisters don't get shot? Pushing our black women to press on and fight for the same issues our ancestors died for today. Our opponents keep saying, who is going to sign up our petitions? Who are we going to talk to that's willing to listen? It's 2022. We have Barack Obama, Kamala Harris. Right here in this room, we have Mayor Stephen Reed. We have Erica Smith, Sheriff Cunningham, Aronde Mitchell, QB Ray, and Kelvin Elkins. Furthermore, by willingly and openly violating the law because you do not agree with the law, a dangerous precedent is set that anyone can disobey the law whenever they feel like it. Civil disobedience is a fair way to protest an injustice. That said, whenever violence occurs, you are no longer expressing a protest. You are placing yourself above the rights of the First Amendment. And this is why you should vote negative.
All right.
You have 3:45 remaining for prep time. You can use some of that.
Yeah, we'll be using all of that.
Okay. All right. And this will be the final speech from that we'll hear today. So just.
I apologize. I didn't know a legend is in the room. QB Ray? Where is she? She left. I apologize. And that is, she is also a reflection of civil disobedience and power to the community. Mr. Kevin Elkins? Mr. Elkins, I apologize. You had a run in, you might not remember me. But I like what you're doing. And I like that you push the envelope, and I think that's what this is about. We may agree with civil disobedience, but the fact that these young people can get up and academically and factually defend what they're saying. Some of us, as I made the joke earlier, I may need my daughter Elon in the courtroom one day based upon my temper. So they have to learn the law, because the law is only going to benefit those of us who understand it and know how to utilize it. And that is a lot of problems in our community. We don't know the law. We don't know our Constitution. So the fact that Ms. Russell, wave your hand again, that she requires that. It's one thing to get up and just argue, as most of us tend to do. But it's another thing to be able to factually defend your point of view. And I am so proud of you all, because at your age, as I told Elizabeth, I didn't start speaking until I was 13, her age. So that is a wealth of time, and you all are miles ahead of me. So be empowered today. Be encouraged today, because you did the thing today. You showed up and you showed out today. So however it falls, at the end of the day, you know that you invested in yourself. You acquired knowledge that you may not have gotten in the classroom. We as a Corpius are proud of you today. Proud to know you. And so excited about your future. So once again, to all our elected officials, thank you so much. And to the parents, wave your hand. Where the parents? Oh, boy. sit down because there's nothing like living with a master debater. If you understand where I'm coming from. But today we understand that we will continue to cultivate this in them. And once again, thank you so much, Ms. Russell. Words cannot express the gratitude that we You are a brilliant sister. I work with you every day. I am absolutely disgusted with how you have been treated by where we work, the retaliation you faced and was fired out of retaliation. You did not deserve it, and you know, people know if I got to go by myself, I will go. You are an asset to wherever your feet walk, and God has you. And I told you I was going to do this because I want the people to know. You stood up for yourself. You stood up for all women. You were in your tenure year. That means you've been with me for 3 years. You came in my 2nd year. This is my 5th year. I am so proud of you. And I know that God is going to open up the windows of heaven and he's going to bless you.
Amen.
Fold on top of fold. And I say this in front of leadership, that in the midst of these children debating civil disobedience and retaliation in 2021, we are still dealing with unequal rights for women and women being bullied in places. So to you, Alvin Tucker, thank you for blessing Ms. Russell and her organization. And when I tell you all, if you're having a wedding party, you come support the Tucker Center because they're supporting the community. We thank you, Mr. Tucker. Raise your hand. And I think I acknowledge William Boyd. If you can't say anything about this brother, he will turn it up and bring light to what's happening to the poor and the marginalized and the disenfranchised. Coach Calvin, hats off to you. I am proud. Alon, you won't hit my mouth no more. Y'all won't hit my mouth no more. I'm so proud of you. And I hope that's time to back over to you.
All right, we're now in line for the final speech from the affirmative.
Now, just a brief talk to the legislators here in the room. I want to make it clear that in no way are we promoting anarchy or undermining your expertise of the law. We're just contacting you and getting a way of trying to reach you when you are ignoring us. Let me also say that when we disobey laws that degrades human dignity, that degrade who you are, that degrade your personal character. Now, today, the negating side is non sequitur. That is Latin for it does not follow.
Come on, somebody.
They quote Dr. King in their closing arguments, but disagree with their means and methods, disagree with his means and methods of civil disobedience. Now, I would like to offer you a quote that I like. It says, "The time is right to always do right." Now, I urge you to look in your lives right now and see what rights and privileges you have because of others. Like Dr. Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, Nelson Mandela, Claudette Colvin, they took it upon themselves to disobey unjust laws. We would not have the opportunities we have without them. Today, our country would have not been led by its first African-American president without civil disobedience.
That's right.
Let me remind you that everything that Hitler did in Germany was legal and was considered a just law. If not for Socrates, we would not have academic freedom we have today of his practice with civil disobedience. As Haley said, we would not live in the beautiful United States of America today without civil disobedience and the classic act of the Boston Tea Party, which was a classic act of civil disobedience. Now, in Christianity, we know that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego practiced civil disobedience. Why? Because they had a higher moral law to follow. Now, the Holy Week just passed, and I learned in Sunday school that Jesus Christ practiced civil disobedience. I know when the time comes, Haley, Elizabeth, and I will be ready to practice civil disobedience. Will you join us in practicing civil disobedience? Or will you stand idly by and watch while laws that just passed in Georgia that says you can't pass out water and a snack to person in the voting line? Will you just stand idly by while unjust laws are being passed? Now, we stand here today, about a couple minutes away from our city council, where the seal says a cradle for the Confederacy and the birthplace for the civil rights movement. You want to know why? Because of civil disobedience. Therefore, I urge you to affirm the affirmation ballot. Thank you.
All right, thank you. One more round of applause. They added quite a bit since I saw you last Wednesday evening, so that was a great job. I think Crystal's going to have some instructions for you and our audience.
First thing I need y'all to do is give these kids a They've written these papers. Now, they're not getting grades for this. So I want you to know that they're doing it because they are passionate. And I'm so proud of you. I am so proud of you. I just want you to know that. But I do also want to let you all know that I need your help. Because every school in Montgomery has a basketball team and a football team in all of these schools. We need this in our children's schools. Can we talk about developing confidence, talk about developing self-esteem, talk about essay writing. These kids did it.
Yes,
And I can't do it by myself. So I want to thank everyone who has been involved. I got a little token for you, but I'm going to give it to you later on because I don't want to belabor the hour. But I want to thank you, Coach Cobbin, our debate coach. Give him a hand. I want to thank Ms. Michelle Summers, our public speaking coach. Give her a hand. I want to thank the parents that have trusted us with your children and brought them to debate class and helped us in any way. I want to thank you all. I want to thank Mr. Alvin Tucker as well for letting us do this. I want to thank each and every one of you all for coming here and supporting our youth because this is what we need. Michelle said at the very beginning, she says that the children can change this nation. Let me tell you something. What I just saw, I'm going to stand back because I know that they can do it, but they can't do it by themselves. They're going to need us to support them. So I appreciate your support, and I would be remiss if I do not invite our mayor to come say some words. But before he does, if you will open up your program, you'll see an evaluation sheet. I would like for you to fill it out, and if you look at number 10, we only have one judge, and Coach Cobbin, he needs y'all to help judge. So tell us, just circle who you thought won, and then fill it out, and I'll come take that up. But without any further ado, I would ask that we give a hand for our mayor.
Thank you. I wasn't expecting that, and I'm not going to be up here long because they said everything needs to be said. I want to give them another round of applause. Y'all did fantastic. I know we have a number of elected officials. I have a couple of my colleagues with us. Councilman Audrey Graham is here. Councilman Rondé Mitchell is also here. I want to thank them. And I want to thank our partners at the Board of Education. And that's Dr. Brenda DeRamus Coleman and Erica Watkins Smith. Thank you all for your help. And certainly I want to thank the High Sheriff for his support. You know, this for me started long before I became mayor. We tried to get a middle school debate program going under the previous superintendent and our previous board, and we had a number of people that helped us raise money for it. And at that time, MPS kind of went through some turbulence, and they weren't able to get it off the ground. And so when this opportunity came back, I was really excited because I thought it had fallen off. And one of the things I just want to share is not everybody can be a great athlete, not everybody can even be a great orator or speaker. But I think programs like this that invest into the intellectual capital that we have in our schools are very important for us to support. And I can certainly tell you that from my office, and I believe, I hope I speak for the city council as well, that you will have our support in doing everything that we can to work with our peers at MPS. I would love to see a middle school debate league. It's something that the private schools have. It's something that I think that our public schools should have. And so I hope that we can come together and really make that a reality, because when you see not only the knowledge but the presence and the poise that exists here, is something that we want to continue to make more prominent in our community. I think they are leaders. I think right now they are leaders. It's not they're going to be leaders. They're leaders right now. And so just by the teamwork and the group that you have put together to help with this, I think shows the type of community support that you have from the parents to community leaders, community activists, all the way across the board. This is something that we'd love to see even more. And so this is the best and the brightest, and I know we have many more of them among our young people, and we want to support them any way we can. So again, on behalf of the City of Montgomery, on behalf of my administration and our partners with the City Council, and I certainly hope those over at the County Commission and others, whatever we can do to try to support this, we would do. So I just want to thank all of you, and it's cliche to say there are no losers, but really everyone up here, I think, is a champion and is a winner, and any way that we can help out to further your goals in debate, please don't hesitate to let me know. There are schools, there are other competitions, I like to see us compete against some, not against one another. I like to see us take this on the road and compete against some other people. So whatever we can do to make that happen, you just let us know, and y'all tell us what we have to do, because they deserve to be seen, and they deserve, I think, to be lifted up for the work that they put in and what they have just taught me. I took 4 years of Latin, brother. 4 years of Latin, and I don't remember any of that. So I learned more today by being here than I did in those 4 years that I took of Latin. So thanks so much for that, and thank all of you for what you have done. The young ladies, this brother, thank you so much for y'all's presence and for y'all's participation. Thank you.
We want to thank Mary. That's your future brother, because he is at Morehouse, Mary. Oh yes, sir. And he used to get a lot of stress from me on Thursdays, and I have missed them so much. And unfortunately, I cannot be with them because I am following my dream.
Absolutely.
And I told you all to follow your dreams. I am so proud of you, Michaela, because you did not have a popular position to defend. So be mindful of the fact that sometimes to defend the popular is easy. It's when you're defending the unpopular that it becomes difficult. So hold your head up. And my May. That's my baby. I call her Sheba. And I'm so proud of the growth. I met her when Miss Russell was in the first development of it, and we were at Alabama State, and we did a day together, and we did vision boards, and she and I became instant friends.
That's my daughter's now.
Shit. Lord have mercy. I did not. So I get it. And I stay. They're all my favorites. But she and I have had more of an extensive relationship. And I have loved her from day one. And to see the development, it's in the blood. And because you, the student, should always be better than the teacher. Yeah. So you will do much greater. And your father and mother have done great things. You will do greater. You will do greater. I'm so proud of you today. I'm eating humble pie. And not because I didn't think you could do it, but the poise that you have, the fact that you are a gentleman, the fact that you are academic and you are intellectual and you can reflect that. Much respect to you, my brother. To the Lady Haley Mullins, you come from Spunk. You come from Spunk. Your mother, your grandmother, your uncle, one of my favorite people, your grandfather. I did not expect anything less. You are really headed for great things because you are also an academic and you are not to be played with. And I know what you say your major will be, but I would love to see you in a courtroom one day. Bob, you live with me. I am so proud of you right now, and I will not cry these lashes off. You are the best of me and your father. And we laughed and we joked about Nana and Pawpaw coming over, how they been here 4 o'clock. And then we found out they had hors d'oeuvres, so your grandfather would have been happy. I'm so proud of you today. And that dream of being an attorney, you will do what I didn't do, what I didn't have the courage to do. You keep fighting, and you know people assume things about us, but they don't know I let you have your freedom. She didn't want my help. She gets that from her daddy. She didn't want my help. She kept telling me, be quiet, Mama, I got this. I'm proud of you today. What you all did, Michaela, who I know will be in the courtroom.
Oh, yeah.
I know that you will be in the halls of Congress and the White House as well. What you did today was not easy, but we are so eternally grateful because this is the cradle of the civil rights movement, because you are standing on the shoulders of greatness, because the soil is full of blood that was shed so you could do this today. So to you I say congratulations, and finally on behalf of Ms. Russell once again, and I believe in giving honor where honor is due. So to the parents, give your parents, stand up and give your parents a round of applause. Because they gave you life, and they owe you nothing else. It's what you do with the life they gave. I owe you nothing else with your iPhones and stuff. We owe you nothing else but to do something with the investment. To our dignitaries, first of all, our empress of the evening, Ms. Russell, and I'm going to get everybody to Dr. Brenda DeRamus Coleman, to Sheriff Derek Cunningham. Look at all this black royalty in here. To Erica Watkins Smith, Audra Graham, Cuba Ray, who was here, Shayla Jackson, Alvin Tucker, Aronde Mitchell, Big Brother Nick Rankins. Y'all, Nick is in the house. Maurice Rollins, entrepreneur. Mr. Mullins, JD, Mr. Boyd, community activist and voice, Philip Insler, and to the Honorable Stephen Reed. Did I miss anybody? Coach Paulding, you are awesome. Thank you, because I don't care. Money cannot buy what you've done.
Oh, here's
Think all, be all. Zeph and Jonathan always in the house. I am going to sit down and shut up. Kevin Elkins, I see you, because we want the words to go out into the pastor and the first lady. Please, can you all wave your hand? They gave birth to greatness. And I love what we, instead of saying first lady, we say the fragrance of the house. The fragrance of the house, because when you walk into that church, the fragrance is sweet and it's inviting. And that's where our children have been. So we thank you for what you all put into Ms. Russell. We thank you for the legacy you have given her, because she's doing what Christ asked us to do. Pass it on. Thank you all so much.
Jackson's going to have one word for the students, and then we'll hear from Coach Coleman.
Thank you so much for having me. I just want to say I came into this blind, speaking to Chris, like, yeah, I'll sign up, I'll do it. You guys have just set me ablaze tonight. It is a force to be in your presence. I am so proud of you. I took notes. You taught me something. And if anybody knows me, I will read you down somewhere. But y'all brought the history. You brought the dignity to the data that you shared, and your delivery was everything.
Yes.
I just want to say to Michaela, young lady,
Yes.
I cannot wait for your future. I'm going to be somewhere with your grandma and your mama holding a sign, screaming at a TV. It's just the power of your words, Aylin. I don't know where you will end up, but I know you're going to open the door when you do.
Yes, he will.
Maya Boyd, honey, you have the mouth of both of your parents, and that's a blessing. Don't let anyone close that for you. Miss Haley, I just respect you. You remind me so much of me as a young woman, and I say that in honor to you. I want to be like you. When you picked up your cell phone and asked those questions, that was fearlessness.
Yes.
Of that great argument they presented. And Bob, ooh, my best friend. It is something commanding about a young black woman standing among her peers as the youngest. You carried yourself. When she asked you the question, you came with your rebuttal, you provided the answer, and you did not falter. There's nothing greater than seeing you walk in your own purpose. Your mother is a beacon of hope, but you came out and became your own. And for this, I am grateful to be next to you. I am so proud of you guys. I look forward to your future, and I look forward to working with you. Good luck.
You guys are dramatically different than when we began our journey a few weeks ago. We started from the ground up with what an argument is, with just basic logic, fallacies, just very simple things. And as you can see, we had to extend, just so you know, most debates don't last that long. We had to extend time because the primary arguments at the beginning were so full of fantastic rhetoric and examples and passion. And I told them the first thing that you have to do in a debate is speak to the audience and move the audience. And they did that for the first half hour. That was all they did. And I thought that was incredible because you didn't do that in the weeks before. I said, please just be bold. Whatever you say, it doesn't matter if it's wrong. Just believe in it and follow through on it. And you guys did that spectacularly tonight. Even Elizabeth, who would hide in the corner and I'd ask her questions and she'd kind of, I don't know what this crazy guy's saying. You were amazing tonight. All of you were. I think in terms of the arguments, and then we'll get to the audience vote, I thought there was definitely more change. You guys had beefed up your case dramatic. Like, it was a complete overhaul from what we had. And there were some things they didn't say that we were kind of counting on in cross-examination. And it came kind of later. But I thought the whole debate comes down to, on this side, why should we wait? We have that sometimes, as Alon kept saying, sometimes the mechanisms in the law don't work. How do we convince these oppressors, the legislators that have created the laws, how do we get through to them? So I was kind of hoping for you to focus on, well, we don't get through to them, we get through to the majority, and that's where we have to use these protests. But I thought they overwhelmed you with a lot of examples there. I thought the best argument we had from you guys is this idea that, okay, so if we're all different, can't I just say any law is unjust? In fact, Maya's last speech says, how do we know when a law is unjust? Who determines its unjustness? So this idea that I could act out at any time, I thought, so the one thing I was hoping for was an example where people got it wrong, where people thought that the law was unjust and they acted out, and the rest of us sat there going, what's wrong with you people? We saw a lot of that on January 6th. I don't mean to offend anybody, but I think there were a lot of people who thought they were in the right and kind of took matters into their own hands. And although I don't know that, I think you were going to be ready for that, saying, well, that's not civil disobedience, because the acceptance of the law shows how we respect the law. So I think in the end, I needed just a little example to make that ring true. And then I thought Alon's appeal to the fact that this isn't creating anarchy, that's not what we're advocating, kind of helps to mitigate that a little bit. So in the end, I voted affirmative. But I thought you ladies showed the most change in terms of prepping this case. If you guys had seen what we had earlier this week, it was nothing like what you had here at all. Now, the audience, there were 3 people who voted both ways because they couldn't figure out. They weren't going to vote against either of you, and I don't blame that decision one bit. There were 4 votes for the negative, and there were 7 votes for the affirmative. So the audience finds in favor of the affirmative side as well. But we would like to publicly announce, Maya and Michaela wanted to make it clear by the end of the night that they do side on the favor of civil disobedience. They didn't want everyone to think that they were against MLK or they thought that civil rights was wrong. But they were willing to take on the negative side, and that's the biggest challenge. Debate isn't about Debate is about being able to stand up and be persuasive and convincing. It's both sides have merit to them in a debate. So it's really about the exercise of being poised, and you guys, in the face of difficult arguments, and all of you proved you have that ability. So congratulations. It is very well done. Thank you.
Comes and ends, I just want to remind everyone to not leave immediately after. Our students want to have tokens to give to those who they invited, because they invited y'all and y'all could have been anywhere else in the world, but y'all are here with them tonight. So we appreciate it. So we want to give you something, and we got some food in the back. So enjoy yourself. Take some pictures with us if you can. And now I'll give it to Michelle to finish.
So, as Ms. Russell said, enjoy yourselves, enjoy each other, but please, right now, I think this will be a great time. Like she said, take pictures. I know Ms. Russell has some presentations, and I know that all the family members would love to take pictures with their wonderful and their amazing children. Let's give them their last round of applause. And we know that they have already been loved on. We know they come from loving families, but I implore the parents, including myself, we'll do a little extra for them tonight, and as a way, and spoiling them. What I mean by that is we want some extra hugs, even if we don't normally hug. We're going to do some hugging on these babies tonight, and we're going to do some unnecessary kissing on them tonight, and we're going to lay hands on them tonight, and we're going to cover them tonight, and we're going to pray over them tonight, because we know that when people take a leap, the enemy is already ready to pull them back. And we want to ask for special covering over these young. They are children. They are African-American children. And Elon knows how I feel about him. I will be praying for and with him tonight, as I know he will soon be actually sojourning to Morehouse. And we know that the AU Center is full of a lot of stuff. But now we know all of you, there's purpose, there is destiny, and there is favor over your lives. And I think someone just said what I've been saying to you. You will be at the table. I know now that when you're there, you will do the right thing. And you will do it boldly and proudly. God bless you all. And keep you all. And make his face shine upon you. And keep you in perfect peace is my sincere prayer. God bless you.
Amen.